in the days to come as people scramble to figure out what happened. How did we miss this geologically? Over time, as time continues, when the roads buckle, when people can't travel on the highways because of the heat, when they don't understand the winds, and the coastlines are super eroded, when everyone is fearful of the rain, and when it turns poisonous and everybody seeks shelter indoors, men will ask themselves, where did we go wrong? As it continues, as it wears down mankind, they'll say, God has forsaken us. Don't you believe that for a minute? See, there's a time coming, the Lord said, when even the righteous will begin to think to themselves that God has abandoned them, that He no longer cares. And the Lord said, in that time, it'll happen. In the time when people say God no longer cares, it's going to happen. It was solid, transparent, not solid, and it was under orders. See, that's hard for people to believe. That's almost like talking about angels. That word angel means messenger. Do you guys know the destroyer is described, and it said in the old documents, men made a mistake back then, and they thought it was like any other star that would follow all the physics and everything else. They had made a grave error. They said, this thing is not like a star, it's not like the moon, it's not like a planet. This thing is under somebody's charge. And that's why when it came around, people said, hey, cast away all your false gods and everything else and cry for mercy from the God above. And then they built monuments that we could decipher today to tell our children's children about the thing. To give up earthly goods, forsake these earthly goods and save the soul. They knew it was coming. See, it was a big conversion back then. A big one. The Vatican has a device. The U.S. or the world, international communities have another device. And the Vatican's device is maintained by a global community, by all governments. So with these other devices, they work hand in hand. It is said that a person cannot look upon that object. They have to indirectly view the object. If they look at the object, they'll likely die of fright. So I'm going to ask you something. How can you look at a star or something that looks like the sun and die of fright? Now that seems outlandish. That seems wild, right? It does. It seems that can never happen. That's crazy. That's nuts. Then why would you have a telescope that's kept in secret? Whatever they find is kept in secret for so long. I guarantee you it's not because they've seen life on other worlds. No one cares about that. Everybody's already prone to accept that to a degree. But if they were able to see something that was so far outside of what people expected, well, then you would have an issue, right? For example, I'm going to talk about some of the conditions that you'll see on this earth very soon. I can't even stress that enough. And sometimes, I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's almost like there's nothing I can say to get a person to see a very simple truth, right? Because sometimes we get so prideful in certain subjects, and we're drawn by a long conversation with a bunch of data points. We're drawn by evidence. And it's very difficult to go through that, right? So people like me who have an involvement in specific things try to bring up certain conversations that are weird, but they eventually take place. But they're weird. They're outside of the norm. They're what nobody else was calling for, right? A person like myself will do that on purpose to let you know that there's elements that you're going to have to deal with that no one can calculate. People who are looking at Landsat data were taken back, last week at some of the things that were happening to the Earth. They don't understand it. It's not happening in a way that they ever thought possible. The geological events are taking place and shifts and movements are taking place that those who study Landsat data are taken back. They just cannot. They went so far as to recheck the equipment to make sure that, there were no anomalies there. But we're having geological changes that do not fit the current model of what the Earth is. It's not happening according to what they think the Earth is. It's just not. That should give us a great hint, a big hint, that we cannot trust. You can't trust this empirical data that people have. It's going to fail them every single time. For example, there are about 5 or 6 objects in space of huge, enormous size. They are very close to our location called Earth, right? But which one, or if any of them, which one is going to interact with Earth? Is it them or is it something else?
When I first heard this story about Planet X, and I read Hazelwood's book, one of the first things I did was approach a friend of mine who has privileged access to certain government agencies. And I said, can you check this out? I'd appreciate it. He said, I never heard of it, but I'll check it out. He got back with me a couple of weeks later and he says, John, it's a real thing. They've been watching this thing for more than 20 years. It's out there. They got the Hubble watching it. They got all this instrumentation keeping track of it. It's got a 250,000-mile debris field on either side of it. When I say a debris field, I mean rocks the size of pickup trucks and rocks the size of Rhode Island. Big rocks and little rocks. It's traveling in a cloud of red dust, which means when we finally are able to see it, it'll probably duplicate what was seen by ancient peoples as being a red cross in the sky. The red dust will refract the light and make it appear to be a red cross in the sky.
These are going to be desperate days as far as men's decisions, what a person must do. Now, can they be good for those who are washed by the blood? Here's what the Lord said. The Lord said the world's going to have a rough time, right? But for his elect, if they stay their minds upon Christ, he'll always intercede. And though they will see those things, they will not perish by those things. Do you guys have that? A lot of people don't want to see anything. It's too late. You've seen a lot of it already. A lot. There are developing conditions that you're going to see with your eyes. The more they happen, the more we'll discuss them. Not the facts about them, but the language behind it. You'll quickly begin to see things go a different direction than what you suspected. Man will be surprised and caught off guard. They're not going to be prepared. And when you see air travel decline and the borders shut down for real, then you'll know. You'll know what you never knew before. But knowing, that's not going to save you. Only the Messiah can do that. Folks, I hope this conversation helps somebody tonight. We'll continue the next time I talk. God bless each and every one of you. It's always an honor and pleasure. You guys hang in there and go further. Go further.
Your emergency broadcast system.
This is not a test. This is not a test. This is not a test. This is not a test.
When one thing takes place, other things follow. That's to maximize a blow. See how those minions are? Never compromise by losing your sanity, right? Stay calm. That's how you defeat the enemy. Folks, I want to talk to you guys about the summer. So I don't want to forget to do this with you guys. We all know that things are changing quickly, right? Or potentially changing quickly. I'll say that. I say that because a lot of people are still, they're not going to see it yet. But things are changing.
I got a $100 check from my grandma, and my dad said I need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
It is kind of like watching a value over time go down and drop, right?
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that check in a money market mutual fund.
That's what it's like. And as the value decreases, you may not notice it at first, but if you keep watching, it continues to decrease, kind of like the stock market's doing, right?
Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest.
It decreases and decreases and decreases. Before you know it, it gets to a threshold point where you feel it.
And it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone.
That's how the weather is doing. It's changing slowly. Of course, it's going to speed up, but it's changing. And one of my greatest concerns is that it's going to start causing, take for example, we have folks that live in cold climates. Those climates are no longer cold. And they're warm. The infrastructure in those places is not really equipped to deal with hot weather. You know, that would be like Alaska. Can you imagine Alaska being 110 degrees? Could you imagine that? We'll likely see something just like that, right? Or imagine Arizona for a consistent week having nighttime temperatures at 32 degrees, right? That's almost as bad as the Mojave Desert, right? Or not Mojave, but some other places out there. You can have those type temperatures. Well, what this will do in combination with the infrastructure that we did not fortify, right? Because they're not doing the right thing with the money. The infrastructure is crashing big time, right? Water systems are going to, they're not going to hold out too well in several places. Whatever is old, people are going to know about it. And for some reason, they still won't fix the generators at these nuclear power plants. Do you guys know that? They won't fix, the generators are there to back up the pumps. Because if the pumps fail, a meltdown will occur. And when they test these generators, something is eroding the metal on these generators. Now, have you guys ever seen aluminum erode? Some of you guys who are mechanics out there working on aluminum engines, you've seen them dirty, but you've not seen them erode, like rusty or something like that. I've not seen that because aluminum is really not susceptible to rust, right? But there's something that's beginning to erode metals. Big time. It's a problem, right? It's a big problem. What in the world can begin to eat away at aluminum, causing its structure, that metallic structure, the chemical bonds in there to become very weak, very weak. So we have problems because that means more failures. And many things have aluminum in them, right? You know what this is? These are exotic particles that keep coming in to the atmosphere, right? As we all talk about this stuff coming into the solar system, what we don't talk about is these elements, the buildup of these elements in the upper atmospheres. And some of those elements are pretty heavy. So maybe 1 out of every 1,000 or 2,000, 10,000, right, will get weighted down, accumulate, and then come down close to the surface, if not go right into the surface, right? Now they're building up. That means very exotic elements are coming down to the surface of Earth, being absorbed by the Earth in the soils, by plants in your homes and everything else. And that value, right, that sheer volume of these particles is beginning to increase to a notable amount that it's causing illnesses. So we have some really bad issues. The soils are also at a very unstable point. For some reason, with these exotic particles, it zaps away the nutrients out of the soils. That will eventually affect plants, animals, insects. The entire ecosystem is going to be altered and changed. And, well, as a sneak preview of something you guys will certainly learn about here, that's part of what's going on with a global food issue. Not a food shortage, but the global food issue. Quality control around the world and chemists around the world have noticed something happening to the flora all over Earth, right? We're not talking about one region or two regions, but all over the Earth. We have a consistent issue with all the foliage. So if it's exposed to air, right, or if it's exposed to any moisture that the atmosphere puts off, you're going to have an issue with whatever foliage, whatever crops you have, plants you have, gardens you have. There's going to be an issue worldwide. It will affect everything, and it's affecting everything now. This will eventually lead to a chemical imbalance in the animals, right? Which will, that animals depend upon their immune system to be highly charged all the time, right? Which is why when a dog is wounded, it will, lick a wound and it heals fast because a dog's mouth is full of antibiotics, believe it or not. Right? So is a cat's mouth is full of antibiotics. The mother's milk of these mammals is full of antibiotics, strong antibiotics. But if that begins to decrease, the animals are going to have sicknesses just as many as we do. Just as many. These particles target the immune system is one of the first things to go, right? And I'll tell you something. The nature of things is going to become very different. Very different. If something fell to the earth right now from space, I wonder what people would say. If it destroyed a city, what would they say? Because we're going to see a day when all of us, those who are here on this earth, are trying to go to the lower domain because we're in the middle of a meteor storm. That is coming, and it's coming sooner than you know. There will come another day, right, when the highways are going to buckle. You're going to begin to see that within months, the highways buckling, which is going to make travel very difficult, right? You'll see that. How many are ready for a meteor storm? A meteor storm does not just hit in one spot of the earth, but will cover the entirety of the earth. How many are ready for that? How many honestly are ready for something like that? And of course, it's going to begin small. Maybe you notice a hailstorm with rocks in the hail. That's going to be one of the first signs. Can you imagine hail falling? Listen to me, I'm telling you something. Hail falling. Now, bound within the hail is dirt. You're going to see that. You're not going to understand it. Then, a few more storms later, the same hail with the dirt in it is going to be a pinkish color. That's going to throw people off. It's a build-up to the inevitable. See, when things turn real, it's not exciting at all. It isn't. It's not exciting. But I'm trying to give you hints that things are about to go topsy-turvy. Much evidence will come forward. And it will prove this fantasy world that most people laugh at. The same ones who laugh at the UFO topic will bow to it. The same ones who scoff all these cryptic creatures and stuff will submit to them. Let me not get passionate here, but they will. And no one is going to call them out on that. No one. No one. But my question is, are you going to be one of those who stays the course? Or one of those who falls?
To truly understand the idea of the end of days, first one must understand the message that was given. No matter if you choose to follow any single religious belief or not, the message is clear. The very thought that so many can exist today, and yet still not choose, or want to believe, that the future was in fact laid out in black and white, for all of humankind to know and understand. And yet, so many people still avoid hearing, or understanding, the simple words left, specifically for them. If anything should make you nervous about the future, it is that. Imagine what that may look like, when so many will suddenly have no choice but to come to terms with the end times they are facing, and not to understand what is really happening, or how they should now proceed. This is a thought that wakes me at night from my sleep. For those of us who have read the texts and are aware of what was said, fear tends to no longer be relevant. The last thing this information should ever do is bring you fear. Knowledge is power, and with great power, fear is never again an option.